we saw an interesting sounding name in the Utah map, Coral Pink Sand Dunes State Park. It was kind of off the beaten track. We had to drive on an unimproved road to get there, but we decided we're in the neighborhood, we're going to see it. We drove to Bryce Canyon, and because we had enough time, we drove beyond Bryce Canyon to the Kodachrome Basin, a place that I had never been. We decided to explore this place.
This is gorgeous, unbelievably beautiful. The colors are just, I can't believe the colors. Look at it. Look at that stripe over there.
At Bryce Canyon, we often passed deer on our way to observing the sights. The elevation at Bryce is very high, and so the air is thinner, and we seem to feel the effects of the thinner air by being a little bit more tired than we'd expected to be. The sights at Bryce Canyon are just fantastic. I got up most mornings before sunrise to go in and try and photograph some of their beauty. We left Bryce Canyon and drove on Route 12 in the general direction of Capitol Reef National Park. When we got to Escalante, we learned of some very interesting side roads. And so we took the Hole in the Rock Road, which is sort of an unpaved, long road. And after 30 miles, we stopped at the Devil's Rock Garden. Here there are many interesting rock formations, seemingly sprouting for no reason in Nowheresville, just off the road. And we took a walk through the Devil's Rock Garden and were amazed at all the formations.
Looks like an elephant. Such beautiful formations of rocks. Just rocks. But the good Lord has made such beauty on this earth that there are just so many people that have not yet experienced it. It's just fantastic. My mouth is just always open. All I do is just ah.
We continued north on Route 12 and stopped several times as we made the pass to stop and look out over the gorgeous views.
Big hole right in here. Look at this, right in there, carved out.
From Boulder, Utah, we took a side road called the Burr Trail Scenic Backway, and after we'd driven 10 or 15 miles, we came to the location of the Long Valley, or the Long Gorge, and we dropped down into there, drove inside it, and had these sheer cliffs on either side of us, each of them with these gorgeous colors. It was an outstanding drive. Next, we headed north on Route 12 over another summit, this one at 9,400 feet. Joan couldn't resist taking a walk and making some snowballs. She was polite enough not to throw them at me. We continued on to Capitol Reef National Park. I had remembered it as nothing particularly outstanding, but as we drove south into the park and then went off the main road and up sort of a creek bed road, we experienced these gorgeous side wall canyons going up sheer cliffs right beside us, and with pock-marked walls. It was just a gorgeous trip back into this primitive area. Our next objective was Canyonlands National Park in Utah, and the Grand Viewpoint Overlook in particular. This is a point from which you can see both the Colorado and the Green Rivers coming together, and the magnificent valleys and canyons that these two rivers have eroded out of the earth. You can see for miles in all directions. While we were there, it was very cold and very windy, and when we decided to have lunch, it began to snow. Next stop was Arches National Park. Joan had never been there and enjoyed walking around and seeing a number of the arches that can be reached fairly quickly from the road. Two late afternoons to take the 45-minute walk up to Delicate Arch to try to get the perfect sundown picture of that famous arch. One of the biggest adventures of the trip was hiring a four-wheel drive Jeep to drive into Canyonlands. This unsurfaced trail almost wove along the top of a mesa with the Colorado River down to the east, and many times the road came very close to the edge. Joan drove a four-wheel drive vehicle, a Jeep, for the first time in her life, and found that it was an exciting trip.
The part you got me to drive. Can you see the part you got me to drive? On this narrow ledge. It's scaring me half to death. Oh, wait a minute. Do I go up this way? I think it'd be better. Oh, God. Dear Lord, got me through that one.
As we drove along, we observed flowers. We observed the water which had collected in some of the bowl-like impressions in the rock. fact, there were some times when she wishes she wasn't in the Jeep at all. I'll read a bit from the Canyonlands brochure about Canyonlands. Canyonlands preserves an immense wilderness of rock at the heart of the Colorado Plateau. Water and gravity have been the prime architects of this land, cutting flat layers of sedimentary rock into hundreds of colorful canyons, mesas, buttes, fins, arches, and spires. The areas share a common primitive spirit and wild desert atmosphere. Its roads are mostly unpaved, its trails primitive, its rivers free-flowing. Throughout its 527 square miles roam desert bighorn sheep, coyotes, and other animals native to this land. Canyonlands is wild America. This is a natural bridge that both Joan and I walked out on. One of the last parts of our four-wheel drive adventure was up the side of an almost straight up and down canyon wall, taking a route with many, many switchbacks. Next, we ventured into Navajo country, and the first natural signpost was Mexican Hat Rock. In Kayenta, we saw a sign saying on Saturday night, song and dance. So we went and, well, it was song and dance, and we danced. On Sunday in Kayenta, we went to a powwow in a parking lot at Bash's food market. There are two parts to the powwow that day. In the morning, there was gourd dancing. In addition to the dancers, there were the drummers and singers. One of the special features of a gourd dance is that if you want to pay your respects to someone, you give them a token gift at their feet while they're singing or performing. The second half of the powwow was devoted to dancing and singing contests. This event started with an entrance march by the people dressed in all their regalia. During the afternoon, there were different categories of dancers who competed, and there were 3 different drum singer groups who competed. We got up early one morning to take a group tour of Monument Valley.
And the natural colors from the sheep are the white, black, gray, and brown. And if she wants other colors, she'd go out there and gather plants and boil the plant and then put the yarn in it to get a different color. There's a dye chart over here on the wall where the plants giving the different colors of the yarn. A lot of them use the commercial dye out here today because you get bright colors if you use commercial dye. But if you all use naturals, they're not as bright as the commercial dyes. The next step is spinning it into yarn. With the little piece of wool she carded there, she'd probably get about 2 or 3 yards of yarn out of that little piece of wool. Just spinning and pulling on it. Attaching it right after another to create a long strand of yarn on her handmade spinning tool there. And most Navajo women teach their young daughters at the age of 6 or 7 to do the carding the wool and spinning the yarn while the mother weaves the rug. Lucy's been doing this most of her life, and she makes the spinning of the yarn look so easy. And the more they spin their yarn, the more strength it would get. For instance, their loom part very well spun, so when they pull and tug on it while they're weaving, it won't break. And some of the size she has here of a rug take her at least 4 to 5 months to finish with the carding, spinning it, and weaving it. Take her that long to finish. She has a pictorial pattern here, most popular with her. You'd have to inspect the rug very carefully to find a mistake in there, just to show nobody's perfect in life.
One of the features of our tour was a break at noon for lunch, prepared by our guide over a fire. Our particular tour was run by Goulding's Trading Post, and from time to time in the tour they put on special performances or had special photographic opportunities for us. In addition to the world-famous beautiful monuments in Monument Valley, the stone monoliths, there are also historical remnants from the ancient Anasazi civilization. There were pictographs and also some ruins of dwellings that they had in caves that we were shown. Our four-wheel drive truck with a sunshade was full, and we had people from Germany, from Finland, and from many states in the United States in our truck. At many of the stops there were Navajos who were selling their crafts. We had planned to take a tour into Canyon de Chelly, but the weather on that day was lousy and we had to cancel.
Navajo people, during those times, our lifestyle was very different, and our beliefs also. Navajos usually lived far apart from each other, and we usually migrated across this whole land here. We never had no permanent settlements like Pueblo people. Pueblo people, they lived in permanent settlements, and they lived all together as a community. But Navajos were not like that, Diné people, and we still are not like that. We usually live far apart from each other. But mostly Navajo people were very peaceful. We usually did not attack people for just no reason.
We took a group tour of the Hubbell Trading Post and the residential area.
This place was considered a mecca to a lot of artists. A lot of Southwest artists usually came to the Hubbell Ranch and stayed here. They usually drew Navajo people around here or drew the landscape. They were inspired by it.